Hello and good morning, good afternoon, and a very good evening to you all, the good and wonderful people of YouTube. Hope you're today, hope you're feeling grand, and all is well in your world. Hello there, everybody. Today's video tube, I want to talk about intonation and how important that is. First things first, what is intonation? So, the best way I can think of explaining this is this way. So, if you think of a guitar as the guitar necks, this area here, as two separate entities for now. So from the nut to the 12th fret is entity 1, and from the 12th fret to your saddles down here is entity 2, right? Intonation makes those two entities one, instead of being two separate things. When your intonation's out, your guitar, this section of the guitar will not play happily with this section of the guitar. It just won't, because it'll be out of whack. Whereas when you get your guitar intonated by adjusting the saddles down here, which I'll talk a bit more about in a sec, it makes that entity and this entity one. So it just becomes a whole instead of two things. That's kind of like the only way I can really, to get it as simple as possible. That's kind of what I'm thinking. And basically what that is the guitar has to be in tune with itself. And you can check this by the harmonics at the 12th fret. So the 12th fret harmonic should equal the 12th fret note fretted, which it does. And the best way to check this with a tube is, you can do it with your ears, definitely, but the best way to do this is with a tuner. Like an electronic tuner, like, whatever, like a Boss TU pedal tuner, a Snark, any kind of tuner will let you do intonation. And that is normally a better way to go than just using your ear. You can use your ear to triple check, should I say, because you want to double check with a tuner, and then you can triple check with your ear. So, and I'll talk a bit more about that in a sec. But that's the best way to do intonation, is with an electronic tuner. You don't really want to be doing it by your ear, to be honest with you, because there's too much margin for error. An electronic tuner doesn't have that margin of error. It will just show you, and you will see exactly what's going on, whether the string's flat or sharp. So to intonation to be in, your 12th fret harmonics have to equal your 12th fret all fretted. Okay, so there you go. So Mr. White's intonated. Because if those harmonics, if your fretted note is out to your harmonic, if they're out of tune, then anything you play past the 12th fret will be slightly out of tune as well, which comes into a problems if you're kind of like, if you've got like a chord progression, you go to a solo past the 12th fret and the intonation's out, it's going to sound terrible. And you'll have to retune your guitar to play. But then this part of the guitar, entity 1, is now out of tune, and this part of the guitar's in tune. So intonation is super, super, super important. Is it ever 100%? No, it's not. But you can definitely get it into the 90% range. And that's all you need to be. It doesn't have to be within, like, no sense. It can just be like absolute. It doesn't have to be perfect. It can be as close as. And like I say, you can double check with the electronic tuner, and then you can triple check with your ear. Because this is what I do to just keep an eye on my guitars, is I play the E, A, and D harmonics, and then I play the E, A, and D fretted, and that sounds in to me. And then I do the same thing with G, B, and E. Sounds spot on to me. And another thing I do with people on YouTube is I play an E major chord. So I've got an E major chord up the top of the neck, and then I play the exact same thing again down the bottom of the neck. And what I'm listening for is any differences in the notes. Which there isn't any, so job's a good one. Also, another thing you can do, PeopleTube, is check by doing power chords. So if I play like an A5 power chord here, and then play it down here, there's no, obviously it's octave higher, it sounds weird, but like you can tell there's no weirdness going on. It doesn't sound like this. There's none of that going on. So the best way to do intonation, in my opinion, is to do an electronic tuner. Always check and check again, and then check again after that. Because things can, you can never check enough times. Simple as that. So let's talk about how you change the intonation on the guitar. So, every guitar, depending on which style you have, you all have bridge saddles. If it doesn't matter if it's a Les Paul Telecaster, we've all got bridge saddles, and they move backwards and forwards using these screws there. Les Pauls, you can sit Les Paul style, like those tail pieces. They have screws that you move the saddle about. Telecasters, if they've got free saddles, again, there's always a screw in the back to move it about. The only thing that doesn't move is stuff like Floyd Rose's, but they're kind of set. You don't really have to mess with them too much, to be honest with you, and that video isn't really about Floyd. So that's how you do intonation. So if I was, for instance, to play my 12th fret harmonic, and that's in tune, and then I play the fretted note 12th fret, like that, and then that comes up on the electronic tuner as flat. What I need to do is I need to move this saddle forwards towards the neck. And what that will do, it will make the string length shorter from a 12th fret to the saddle, and that will sharpen the string and make it, closer to being in tune, if you will. It'll basically tune it up from being flat. So if I did that again, harmonic, fret, and then fret it, it's flat. Screwdriver into the screw. This saddle wants to come forward to sharpen the string towards the neck, and then I'll do it a half a turn at a time. So you just do half a turn, and then you go back, check again with the electronic tuner, and if it's in, job's a good one. Now, if your string's sharp, you want to be going the other way. So if I play the 12th fret harmonic and then fret and then a fretted note on the 12th fret and it's sharp, what I need to do now is I need to move the saddle backwards towards the back end of the guitar, and that will lengthen the string and make it flatter. It's always really strange. I always find it kind of backwards in my brain, but it doesn't seem to make sense to me. And I have a real hard time remembering this, PeopleTube. It's a really hard thing. What I normally do is I just get a tuner and I just turn it until it goes right, which is great. But I remember knowing more about it, kind of like how to describe it years ago when I first started doing this myself. But that's kind of fallen by the wayside because I've done it so many times now where I don't think. To explain how to do it requires a different kind of thought process that I'm not particularly very good at. Anyway, like I say, so if your guitar's flat, to intonate it, to get it sharper, your saddle wants to go towards the neck. If it's sharp, you need to move it backwards to lengthen the string to make it flatter. So that way's sharp, that way's flat. And it's very simple. It really is. And I really, really, really highly recommend doing it yourself. Same with any guitar kind of setup work. Just do it yourself. It'll save you money in the long run. And it's just good. It's a good skill to have. To know how to set up your guitars, to know how to set up guitars in general, intonation-wise, string height, and truss rods, stuff like that. I'm going to talk about truss rods in another video another time. But for now, we'll stick with intonation. So, once your intonation's all in on all strings, job's a good one, And again, check it in a couple of different ways with your ear. Do the harmonics. And do chords. And they should equal each other perfectly. You know what I mean? There shouldn't be really much any difference at all from playing in that position to this position. And again, once it's intonated, the two entities are one. So the whole guitar now is one unit. One's not fighting against the other, and the other's not fighting against it. It's all working as intended. Another thing to note, PeopleTube, as well, is when you're doing intonation, and also string height as well, which I'm going to talk about in a sec. You never really want to be doing it with the guitar like this. You don't want to do it flat on a workbench. For guitar, to do intonation and string height, your guitar wants to be in the playing position. It wants to be in this position, this orientation. This will not translate well. If you do the intonation like this and then do this to do that, the intonation won't be in. It will change because the guitar, when it's sat like that, is different. There's different forces on it. Anyway, it's weird. But you want to be doing it in this position. Same thing when you adjust string height on your guitar. Don't do it with the guitar flat. You want to do it in the playing position because that way that's where you play it. You know, that's way it'll be more accurate when you're messing with it. So yeah, I think that's it. Really, I think that's it. The only sad thing about this this video, people of YouTube, is I can't demonstrate it because I don't actually have a guitar that's whappy right now. But funny enough, I actually filmed me re-intonating this guitar, Mr. White, and the footage just decided to vanish. So, very, very happy man here. But hopefully you can understand what I mean by explaining it. Hopefully it makes some kind of sense. It's very, very simple. One thing to note though, it can get really frustrating. Sometimes guitars are pigs and they don't want to intonate. And there's also certain other issues you can find as well. Sometimes manufacturers will put the bridges in too far forward or too far back, which means you'll run out of room to intonate your guitar, which means you can't intonate it. In which case, game over, man. Game over. It's a nightmare. I've had one guitar. It was a Hondo 2 Les Paul from the 70s. Somebody had put a hardtail bridge on that, and they'd put it too far forward, and I couldn't get the low E and A saddles back far enough this way to get the guitar intonated. So what happened there is I took it to a local luthier, and what he did, he took the bridge off and moved it back about 1.5 millimeters to get it intonated, and it's on the cusp of not being intonatable. But if your guitar doesn't intonate, then it's kind of a bit of a problem, because again, then you've got two entities fighting each other. It's not just one homogeneous, glorious, beautiful thing. It becomes a bit of a nightmare. And this goes for all sorts of levels of guitars as well. I have experienced this with really expensive guitars and really cheap guitars. Intonation will break your guitar. Because, again, like I say, if you've got two entities working against each other, you can't play it in tune. What good is it? Whereas if you can get it intonated nicely and as perfectly as you can, you know, it's going to be a great instrument. It's going to play great, and it's going to sound great no matter where you are and what you do on the frets. It's going to be all good. So, but like I say, it's very, very simple. It's basically a couple of step process of harmonic 12th fret, tune that with an electronic tuner, and then you play the fretted note on the 12th fret, watch for tuner, make sure if that's not in tune, if it's flat, the saddle wants to come this way towards the neck. If it's sharp, the saddle wants to go that way towards the back of the guitar. And basically, you turn half a turn each time with a screwdriver. You don't want to be kind of like cranking on it. You want to go nice and slow and get it right. And again, the main thing is do it in this orientation as well. Do not do it like this. Your guitar wants to be this way. It's just way better. Yeah. And the amount of times I've done intonation like this in the past, when I first started doing this thing, and you're like, hey, it's intonating, then you go and play it, and it wouldn't be. I lost count of how many times that happened. And then I learned that to do it this way, do it in the playing position, and then all of a sudden, jobs are good. So just bear that in mind. So a couple of easy steps, check harmonics. Always do it with a digital tuner as well. You can do it by ear if you want, but I wouldn't really recommend it. The digital tuning would be better in the long run. It'll give you a more accurate kind of representation of where you are, because sometimes you can get a bit lost. using your ear doing intonation, and it can become quite fatiguing and tiring on your ears. So just bear that in mind. And another thing as well is, like, you know, this isn't really involved in intonation, but string height. Experiment with your string height so you get comfortable doing it. You know what I mean? You really want to know how to do anything you need to do to your guitar, really. You know, you want to understand kind of electronics of the guitar, how they work, and you understand intonation, string height, nut height, which I'm going to talk about in another video. You know, how to restring guitars so they hold, and stretching strings. You want to know all this kind of stuff, and it's way better to learn and do it yourself than to give it to a guitar shop to do it. It really is. In the long run, it will serve you way better, and it will also be nice and cheaper as well because you can do it yourself. So anyway, PeopleTube, I hope it's just, like I say, just a little short video on intonation. And like I say, it's super important. Like I say, intonation is never 100%, but you can get it into the 90% easily, and that's enough. You know what I mean? Anything beyond that is imperceivable to the human ear anyway, so it won't make any difference. And like I say, once it's set, PeopleTube. I haven't re-intonated this guitar in 6 years. And literally, I re-intonated the low E earlier on today, filmed that, but hey, obviously I didn't. I re-intonated the low E because it just wondered slightly. It was slightly flat. Only slightly flat, but enough that when I was playing a power chord down here, it sounded odd. It sounded a bit weird. Shush, man. So what I did is I just moved the low E saddle forward a little bit, but I think it was about half turn, didn't quite make it, so I did another half turn, which basically one full turn, and it was spot on, and job's a good one. And it took about 5 minutes. This is ridiculous. Why is it? Literally, PeopleTube, when I'm not filming, that thing never makes a noise. It's always quiet. It barely ever rings or anything like that. I start filming and everyone wants to contact me. What the deal, man? Anyway, I hope this has made some kind of sense, PeopleTube. I am really sorry that I can't demonstrate it, but hopefully how I've described it makes sense. And if you've got any questions, leave them in the comment section below and I'll do my best to answer them. But again, it's a very simple kind of like, you know, couple of steps technique. Again, harmonic, 12th fret, tune, get it in tune, 12th fret, harmonic. They should match. If they don't, if it's flat, saddle goes this way. If it's sharp, saddle goes that way. And then you check it again, and then check it again, and then you check it with your ear. And then once that's kind of done, that you're spot on. And again, this orientation, not this, not this. Okay, and that's it. One thing I will say as well, PeopleTube, is Fender guitars, especially Stratocasters, they tend to have this pattern with their saddles. Not all the time though. Do not be fooled by thinking just because your saddles are in this orientation, your intonation's perfect. But quite a lot of the time, E, A, and D will go like that. So E is lowest, A, D, and then G, B, and E are exactly the same thing. So they kind of go on this kind of like slanty orientation. And hopefully you can kind of see that there. But that isn't always the case. I've intonated guitars before where the A string saddle had to be in front of the low E. And also certain other ones where the low E saddle is really far forward, like almost onto the screw. And all sorts of other weird things. I've had them sometimes where they're intonated where they're like this shape. Because I say they're not, you know, that's kind of like the standard on any guitar. If you look at kind of like Les Pauls, kind of Bridges, Telecasters, Strats, Jaguars, there's like an industry standard kind of intonation thing. It looks like this. But I've had some guitars that I've had to intonate where my kind of saddles go like this. So they kind of go E, A, D, G, B, E. And again, I've also had another guitar where I've had to put the low E there, A, D, G, B, E. So bear that in mind, PeopleTube. Just because your saddle's on the correct orientation doesn't necessarily mean they're intonated. So always go by an electronic tuner. They know better than we do what's going on here. And again, that will bring these two entities together to make one, and it will be beautiful and gorgeous. I would say beautiful and gorgeous in one word then, which I don't even know what I was going to be. Anyway, people of the tube, I hope this has made some kind of sense. I hope there's something in here you can take away. But again, I really do recommend doing this kind of stuff yourself. Do not. I always don't rely on taking your guitar to a guitar shop. Find what you like. Find the string height you like. Learn how to do intonation. Learn how to. Well, I'll talk about this in another video. Learn how to do truss rods. Learn how to cut nuts. Learn how to fret level. Learn kind of like, what's going on with electronics in the guitars. Like, learn kind of like, pickup height you like. Learn everything you want to know about the guitar to make it work for you. It's all well and good taking it to a guitar shop and them doing it and charging you 20 quid or whatever it is and you getting it back and it's been really good. But it's better if you can do it yourself, because then you're not relying on somebody else. And also you run the risk of giving it to somebody, them setting it up and you absolutely hating it, and then you've wasted lots of money on it. So I really do recommend learning this stuff yourself. And again, I hope this video has made some kind of sense about how to do intonation and how important it is, because it really is important to get intonation right. Again, it's never 100%, but you need to get it as close as you can do. And again, electronic tuners are a godsend when it comes down to this kind of thing. So just dive in. Just dive in and have fun with it. It will get frustrating at times, but when it gets frustrating, you stop doing it, go and take 5 minutes away from it, take a breather, and then come back to it. It won't go anywhere. Everything will be fine. So I hope it's made some kind of sense. Like I say, if you've got any questions, leave them in the comment section below and I'll answer you down there. Other than that, thank you very much indeed for watching, people of YouTube, and I'll see you again very soon for another one. If you like the vids I do here, please consider becoming a patron at Patreon. Links to that are down over there. As well as links to my Bandcamp where you can listen to my music. And other than that, thank you much indeed for watching, people of YouTube. I've been terrified about this video for ages. I've been wanting to do it for ages and I've been putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. And I think I've messed it up. So if I haven't, please let me know, because it'll make me feel better, because at this point in time I feel awful. The darkness is very much there and it's like, that was rubbish, Dave. That didn't explain anything. You should have demonstrated it. And I couldn't, obviously. I did, but hey. Anyway, thank you much indeed for watching, people of YouTube, and I'll see you again. Have a great one. Goodbye now.